Have you ever been in a hurry? If you're human, the answer is probably yes. Life often feels like a race against time. Deadlines loom, schedules clash, and we find ourselves rushing through tasks, hoping to reach the finish line without tripping. But amidst the chaos of modern life, there's a powerful lesson from the past that resonates deeply with those who are in a hurry. Welcome to our channel, where stories of faith come to life. Today, we delve into the narrative of the Israelites' hasty departure from Egypt. As they fled, they didn't have time for the usual, not even time to let their bread rise. Their actions may seem impulsive, but they offer a profound lesson about faith and urgency. In Exodus 12, the Israelites are preparing to leave Egypt. But why are they in such a rush? Well, they've just received a terrifying warning. The firstborn sons of every Egyptian family are about to die, and the only way to escape this fate is to follow God's instructions meticulously. They must sacrifice a lamb, paint its blood above their doorframes, and stay inside until morning. It's a race against time, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As the clock ticks, the Israelites gather their belongings, their flocks, their families, even their raw dough, which they wrap in cloths to carry along. In the midst of this frenzy, one crucial element is missing: leaven. Leaven, a mixture of yeast and flour, was used to make bread rise, a common practice in those times. But the Israelites didn't have time for that. They were leaving in haste, and their bread would have to be flat and unleavened. Now you might be wondering, why the rush? Why not take the time to prepare their food properly? Well, because they were leaving in haste. There was no time for waiting, no time for the gradual process of leavening. Instead, they needed quick, unleavened bread. And this wasn't just a random choice. It was a direct command from God. He told them, "7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, and there shall be no leaven seen with thee in all thy borders." 7 days. But why 7 days? What's the significance of this number? Well, 7 often symbolizes a period of transition or testing in the Bible. Think of the 7 days of creation or the 7-year famine in Egypt. In this case, the 7 days of unleavened bread marked a clear break from the old life in Egypt. It was a way to physically and symbolically distance themselves from their former lifestyle. During those 7 days, the Israelites were to eat only unleavened bread. No matter how hungry they got, no matter how tempted they were to grab some leavened bread, they had to stick to their unleavened provisions. And guess what? God promised to protect them during this journey. He told them not to worry about being attacked by Egyptians or anyone else, because God himself would fight for them. So what did these 7 days look like for the Israelites? Imagine eating flat, unleavened bread day after day. It must have been quite a change from their regular diet. But they didn't complain. They didn't whine about the lack of fluffy, delicious bread. They pressed on, relying on God's promise of protection and trusting that he would lead them to a better life. This story teaches us a few important lessons. First, it shows us the importance of listening to God and following his instructions quickly. The Israelites didn't argue or try to change God's plan. They simply obeyed and followed his guidance. Second, it teaches us about trust. The Israelites had to trust that God would protect them and lead them to a better life, even though they didn't know what lay ahead. They had faith in God's promises, and they held on to that faith throughout their journey. Finally, this story reminds us that God sometimes calls us to leave our old lives behind quickly. It's not always a gradual, comfortable process. Sometimes it involves making a sudden, decisive move and trusting that God will guide our steps. The Israelites didn't have the luxury of planning everything in advance. They had to act quickly and decisively when it was time to go. And they did. They packed up their things, including their unbaked bread, and they headed out. They didn't know exactly where they were going, but they knew they had to leave Egypt as fast as possible. It's a powerful image, these people fleeing for their lives, clutching their uncooked bread and looking back at the burning bush. Their journey was filled with uncertainty, fear, and wonder. They faced many challenges, including the dangerous journey through the wilderness. the temptation to return to Egypt, and the daunting task of crossing the Red Sea. Yet throughout their journey, they relied on God's guidance, and they never lost hope. In the end, they emerged from their 40-year journey transformed and ready to enter the Promised Land. The story of the Exodus is a powerful reminder that God is with His people. No matter how difficult the journey may seem, He guides and protects them every step of the way. Thanks for joining us today. Remember, when life feels like a race against time, look to the example of the Israelites. Listen to God's instructions, trust in His promises, and be ready to act quickly when the time comes. Until next time, may you find strength and courage in the stories of faith.